Think about the last time life hit you hard. Maybe it was a betrayal, a failure so public it felt like the floor disappeared beneath you. Or maybe it was quieter than that, a slow, grinding realization that no matter how hard you try, something keeps pulling you back down. Now think about the people who don't get pulled down. Not because life is easier for them, not because they were born lucky, or gifted, or fearless, but because somewhere along the way, they built something inside themselves that the world simply cannot break. Carl Jung called it the integrated self. Nietzsche called it the will to power. Modern neuroscience calls it psychological resilience. But all of them are pointing at the same thing, a mind so rooted in itself that storms pass through it without uprooting it. This is not a motivational video. Motivation fades. This is a blueprint, a 30-day map to build the one thing that changes everything, an unshakable mindset. But I have to warn you, what you are about to hear is not comfortable, because the truth is, most people will never develop this kind of mind, not because they are incapable, but because they are unwilling to face what it actually requires. Are you willing? Then let's begin. The diagnosis: why your mind breaks. Before you can build an unshakable mind, you must understand why the average mind crumbles. And it's not weakness, it's architecture. From the moment you were born, you were handed a blueprint, not for strength, but for survival. You were taught to seek approval, to avoid failure, to protect your image, and above all, to react. Someone says something harsh, you react. Someone ignores you, you react. Life doesn't go as planned, you react. Carl Jung said it precisely. Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life, and you will call it fate. This is the core problem. You are not living from a place of choice. You are living from a place of reflex. And reflexes can be triggered. Reflexes can be exploited. Reflexes can be broken. Think about it. How many times have you been fine, genuinely fine, until one person said the wrong thing, and your entire day collapsed? One comment, one look, one unreturned message, and suddenly the version of you that had goals, that had discipline, that had direction, disappears, replaced by someone anxious, reactive, obsessive. That is not a character flaw. That is a poorly built mind. The unshakable person is not someone who never feels pain. They feel everything you feel. The difference is this: they are not governed by what they feel. They observe it, understand it, and choose their response. Epictetus, the Stoic philosopher who was born a slave and became one of the most powerful thinkers in history, said, "Men are disturbed not by things, but by the opinions about things." The event is neutral. The suffering comes from the story your mind attaches to it. And if your mind is unconscious of this process, you will be destroyed by things that should not have any power over you. So here is the first brutal truth of the next 30 days. Your current mind is not ready for the life you want. Not because you are broken, but because you haven't built it yet, and you are about to. Week 1, the mirror phase. Self-awareness without mercy. Most people who try to become stronger go straight to discipline. Cold showers, morning routines, affirmations, but they skip the most critical step: truly knowing yourself. Not the version of yourself you perform online, not the version you show in interviews or family dinners. The real one, the one with the wounds you pretend don't exist, the fears you dress up as preferences, the desires you've buried because someone once told you they were unrealistic. Jung called this work confronting the shadow. The shadow is everything you have rejected about yourself: your anger, your neediness, your jealousy, your ambition, your shame. You pushed all of it underground because the world told you it was unacceptable. But here is the problem. What you suppress doesn't disappear. It controls you. The person who has never examined their anger doesn't have no anger. They have uncontrolled anger that erupts at the wrong times. The person who has never examined their fear of failure doesn't become fearless. They sabotage themselves right before success to avoid the exposure. So days 1 through 7 are about radical self-examination. Every day, you ask yourself 3 questions. What triggered me today? And why did that specific thing trigger me? What emotion am I avoiding right now? And what would it mean to actually feel it? What belief am I operating from that I never consciously chose? You write the answers. You do not judge them. You witness them. Because the moment you can observe your patterns, you begin to gain power over them. Before that moment, they own you. By the end of day 7, you will know your 3 primary triggers. You will know the stories your mind tells about failure, rejection, and worthiness. And that knowledge, that uncomfortable, sometimes devastating knowledge, is the ground on which everything else is built. Week 2, the rewiring phase. Choosing your response. Now that you know what breaks you, the next question is this: how do you stop it from breaking you? Here is something neuroscience and ancient philosophy agree on completely. Between stimulus and response, there is a space, and in that space lies your freedom. Viktor Frankl wrote this from inside a Nazi concentration camp, a man who had lost everything except his mind. And even there, he found that space. The problem is, for most people, that space is a millisecond. Something happens, and they have already reacted, already said something they regret, already collapsed internally, before their conscious mind even registers what occurred. Week 2 is about expanding that space, not through willpower alone, but through practice. The first practice is what I call the 3-second rule. Every time you feel a reactive impulse, the urge to defend yourself, to argue, to panic, to people please, you do nothing for 3 seconds. You breathe. Just 3 seconds. It sounds absurdly simple. It is also one of the most powerful things you will ever train. Because in those 3 seconds, you are not suppressing the emotion, you are observing it. You are telling your nervous system, I see you, but you do not command me. The second practice is response rehearsal. Each night during week 2, you recall one moment where you reacted poorly. You replay it, and then you mentally rehearse the response you wished you had given. Calm, clear, grounded, powerful. Not because the past changes, but because you are literally rewiring the neural pathway for next time. The Stoics called this premeditatio malorum, the premeditation of adversity. Marcus Aurelius, who ruled the most powerful empire on earth, would wake each morning and prepare his mind for difficulty. He did not do this to become pessimistic. He did it so that when difficulty arrived, he already had his response ready. By day 14, you will start to notice something. The things that used to unravel you in seconds now take longer to reach you. And that delay, that widening space, is where your new identity is forming.
If this content changes something in you, click the subscribe button and subscribe the channel.
Week 3, the construction phase. Values, identity, and the immovable core. Weeks 1 and 2 were about clearing, removing what was false, interrupting what was automatic. Now you build. Here is a question almost no one can answer clearly. Who are you when no one is watching? Not what you do, not what you achieve, not what others think of you. Who are you? Most people's identity is entirely external. They are their job title, their relationship status, their reputation, their follower count. And this is catastrophically fragile, because all of it can be taken away. A company downsizes, and suddenly, they don't know who they are. A relationship ends, and they dissolve. A public criticism comes, and they shatter. The unshakable mind is rooted in something that cannot be taken. Jung called this the self, the stable center beneath all the roles we play, all the masks we wear, all the performances we give for the world's approval. In week 3, you define your core values, not aspirationally, but actually. Not the values you wish you had, the ones you would die defending, the ones you have always had, even when it was inconvenient. These become your North Star. When everything else is uncertain, you orient by them. And then you build what Nietzsche described as Amor Fati, love of fate. Not passive acceptance of whatever happens to you. Active love. The decision to take everything life gives you, the failures, the losses, the humiliations, and use all of it as material. Every obstacle becomes data. Every rejection becomes direction. Every painful lesson becomes power. This is the week where you stop asking, "Why is this happening to me?" And you start asking, "What is this preparing me for?" The person with an unshakable mind does not need the world to cooperate. They do not need luck to align. They do not need other people to validate their direction. Because they have something inside that provides everything the average person looks for outside. Certainty, stability, meaning. By day 21, the world has not changed, but you have. And that changes everything. Week 4. The integration phase. Becoming the person who wins. The first 3 weeks built the infrastructure. Week 4 is where it gets tested, and tested hard. Because life does not wait for you to feel ready. Here is what integration looks like in practice. You stop explaining yourself to people who have decided not to understand you. You stop shrinking in rooms where your presence is needed. You stop waiting for permission from others, from circumstances, from a feeling of readiness that never fully comes. You begin to operate from a different frequency. Not louder, not more aggressive, quieter actually. More still. Because the person who has something real inside them doesn't need to prove it loudly. They move differently. They decide differently. They speak less and mean more. In week 4, you apply everything deliberately. You have a difficult conversation you have been avoiding, and you have it with clarity instead of emotion. You face a fear you identified in week 1, and you take one concrete step toward it. You catch yourself in the old reactive pattern, and you choose the new response instead. Not perfectly, never perfectly, but consistently. And consistency over 30 days is how a new identity becomes real. Nietzsche wrote, "He who has a why to live can bear almost any how." When you have a clear internal why, rooted in your values, connected to your authentic self, not dependent on anyone else's approval, the how becomes manageable. Obstacles become interesting. Setbacks become data. Failures become the price of playing at the level that matters. By day 30, you are not the same person who started this process. Not because 30 days magically transforms you, but because 30 days of deliberate, uncomfortable, honest inner work changes what you are willing to tolerate from the world and from yourself. I want to tell you something that most self-improvement content will never tell you. The goal of an unshakable mind is not to become invincible. It is not to stop feeling. It is not to become someone who doesn't care about anything. The goal is freedom. The freedom to feel everything without being destroyed by it. The freedom to pursue what matters to you without requiring the world's permission. The freedom to fail completely and still know, with absolute certainty, who you are. That is the person who wins. Not because they never lose, but because losing no longer ends them. They get back up from a place of substance, not a place of desperation. They make decisions from a place of values, not from fear. They move through the world differently, and the world responds differently to them. Jung spent his entire career trying to answer one question: what does it mean to become whole? And his answer was this: it means integrating everything you are, the light and the shadow, the strength and the wound, the confidence and the doubt. When you stop fighting yourself and start knowing yourself, something becomes possible that was not possible before. You become real. And real is rare. And rare is powerful. So tell me this: in 30 days, are you willing to meet yourself honestly? To stop the reflexes? To build the core? To integrate the whole? Because if you are, everything you want becomes possible. Not because the world gets easier, but because you become someone the world cannot stop. Write in the comments below: I choose to build. Let's see who is truly ready to begin.